A little something now from KT, who is looking somewhat grimly down the barrel of a $14,500 repair bill. Like, dude, that'll be $14,500. Yes, it is regrettable that your car is still under warranty. Take this. Clear. There's a reason the defibrillator is always located in the service department. Today's video is something of a public service announcement, and if you don't want to wait until the end, the important bit is get your car serviced on time, the time or the distance, whichever comes first. If you don't do that and your engine blows up, that's going to be on you, whether or not there's a manufacturing defect or some other related problem that would turn this otherwise into a warranty claim. This video is possible because of my two enduring side hustles, which are, number one, I get new cars cheap for ordinary Australians like you, ordinary mainstream cars for ordinary mainstream Australians. If you don't enjoy going face-to-face with a car dealer, and let's face it, very few people in society look forward to that day once every 3 to 5 years. Today's the day. Gonna get stitched up again, darling. The only question really is how hard and how fast this time, kind of thing. How much is it gonna cost me? We do all the negotiation for you. We are match fit at buying cars in the way that ordinary punters are not. We understand the rules of the game. We get big discounts generally on most cars, and we pass them on to you. And we don't even send you a bill if you go ahead with it. We send the dealer a bill for putting the two of you together and effectively delivering another sale for them. So that sounds like a particularly good deal for you, I'd suggest. And we basically take exactly the same mindset for part two, which is home solar, which is another one of these unpalatable situations where you're obviously from time to time face-to-face with somebody who's a cowboy installer or a bit of a snake selling you low-quality crap with a lot of profit in it for them and not much benefit for you. We do well-engineered systems that are designed around the orientation of your property and its various other constraints. We put engineering oversight into the design of the system before it goes up there on the roof, and we don't use cowboy installers. We use quality products and good installers, which means you get a quality system that's going to be reliable and perform really well for years to come. And P.S., if you want a battery, the government is throwing megabucks at anybody who puts a storage battery together with their solar. It's thousands of dollars off, effectively. So if you've been thinking about it, now is the time to get off the fence on that. You can have a brand new battery with a brand new array and inverter, or you could have a brand new battery with your existing solar array and inverter, or you could have a brand new battery to augment the battery that you've already got together with your existing solar array and inverter. In any case, Chris Bowen has opened his checkbook and he's writing those checks as fast as you could catch. And our team will put all of that together so that you don't have to research the various incentives and tick all the boxes and sign the paperwork and all of that crap. We just put all the bureaucracy in place and make sure you get the government backhander that goes hand in hand with that. So if you're interested in that or the new car's cheap, click the link below. No obligation in either case. We just try and get you a red hot deal. I am all stupid voiced out today. I've been doing a lot of stupid voices today and my voice is feeling a little bit thin at the moment and may not stack up if I read it like that. So I'm just going to read KT's message out in a relatively normal voice, if you don't mind. That might even be more novel than the alternative by this point. KT says, my Haval H6 is still under 7-year warranty. 3 weeks ago, I experienced complete brake vacuum failure while driving, followed by catastrophic engine failure, and I went straight through a set of red lights. It's okay not to know much about how cars work. It really is. Humanity's divided into a Venn diagram of two circles, people who get cars and people who don't. I'm getting the feeling that KT doesn't really get cars, which is probably the majority when you think about it. But I would say misconception number one here is that a failure of the vacuum assistance system for the brakes does not equal a brake failure. It's not a reason to go through a set of red lights. What I'm saying is that the vacuum just makes it easier to use the brakes. When the vacuum system fails, like every time an engine fails for no matter what sort of mundane reason, like there's an ignition problem, minor electrical gremlin that turns the spark off, or, you run out of fuel because you've ignored the fuel light being on for the last 35 kilometres or something. Every time that happens and you get deafening silence, you get about one press on the pedal, and after that, the brake pedal will feel dead. But it's still perfectly functional, and it's your job in that circumstance to just man up and press it really, really hard to stop hitting the scenery, to stop hitting someone or anything else, and to stop the vehicle proceeding through a red light. Because if you could stop with the engine running, you can certainly stop with the engine out and the vacuum assistance off. You'll just need to press the pedal a whole lot harder. It doesn't compromise the hydraulic system, which hardly ever fails in a modern car. And even then, if you run over something and it ruptures a brake line, you're still down to 50% operability of the brakes. Like it's a split system where you only lose 50% in the case of a hydraulic sort of compromise. There's that. Okay. KT goes on and says, no oil warning lights ever came on. Just minutes before the brakes failed, the engine light flicked on briefly, but by then it was too late. I took the vehicle to the dealership where they confirmed, number one, 4 litres of oil were missing, so it's all out there all over the road for some reason. Number two, metal shavings were found in the vacuum pump. Not so sure about this whole vacuum pump business. I'm operating in perhaps the old school world where the vacuum comes from the manifold vacuum, like the inlet manifold vacuum through a one-way sort of check valve just provides the vacuum assistance. They must use a pump in vehicles like electric cars. If things have changed and I didn't get the memo, then savage me in the comments, dude, and I will be happy to be corrected on that. But vacuum pump? Really? The vacuum pump and the engine both failed, according to KT. Despite this being a serious safety defect, she alleges. I don't know about this being a serious safety defect because all you lost was the vacuum assistance, right? Vacuum assistance has been lost every time engines go out since there were cars on the road. So since there were vacuum assistance systems for the brakes. So I don't see it being per se a serious safety defect. Sorry. Anyway, KT says, despite this being a serious safety defect, I've been told by the manufacturer GWM that they are refusing warranty repair because I was 9,000 kilometres over the last service, even though, one, their car is only 4 years old. Number two, there was no oil warning light. And number three, I have video evidence of no warning lights at the time of the failure. We'll get to the 9,000K bit in just a sec, okay, because this really is the crux of the PSA today, right? It's what you need to know. If you don't get cars, you need to get this, okay? Because if you go over like that, your warranty and consumer law entitlements just bailed out and pulled the ripcord and plane's on fire and you're on board and there's no more parachutes. That's kind of where we're at here. But misconception number two is that the oil warning light in most cars is not an oil level warning light. It's an oil pressure warning light. So when you have a catastrophic failure of whatever in a car, you can have full oil pressure at that time, depending on what causes the catastrophic failure. But you can have that catastrophic failure and then lose oil pressure, and then the warning light comes on. Or you can lose oil pressure and have a catastrophic failure within seconds. Okay, so you see the light briefly, then there's a bang and deafening silence kind of thing. But it's got nothing to do with the amount of oil in the engine and everything to do with the pressurization of the bit that you really, really need to stop the precision parts from touching each other on the crank or the camshafts and in the cylinder bores and things of that nature, you know. So there is a mechanism for checking the oil level in most cars. It's called a dipstick, and most people don't check regularly enough. So the ballpark I'd like to tell people generally is that once a fortnight or every second time you fuel the car up, just stop it and check the oil level. And, you know, hopefully you've got a dad or someone of that nature who can just say, check the oil level like this. But the basic process is you just park on a level surface, you shut down, you give it a few seconds, you pull out the dipstick, you wipe it on, you know, someone's knickers, and then you reinsert it, pull it back out and have a look if it's between the high and low marks. And if it is between those marks, then you're all good. And if it's a bit low, you need to add some. It's really that simple, okay? Once a fortnight. Most people don't check their oil for the service interval, which is generally like 12 months, and that is a fail. It leads to problems that would otherwise have just been easily preventable, is kind of what I'm saying. KT goes on and says, my first service was also 10,000 kilometres overdue with no issues or warnings. Okay, this is a logical fallacy. Like if you do the wrong thing once and then you get away with it, it's not a reason to do the wrong thing a second time, or it's not evidence that that was okay the first time. That's a logical fallacy, right? Being massively over the service interval is a significant speed hump on the way, on the road, if you like, to a warranty repair or any other consumer law style of remedy. It really is a big deal. And 10,000 kilometres in the first instance, or 9,000 kilometres over in this instance, these are big missteps. It's not a few hundred kilometres. You're supposed to get the thing done before the distance. It's not like, well, what amount of over is reasonable? The amount of over that's reasonable is not. Don't go over. Don't go over the time and don't go over the distance. You see that the service is coming up and you just book it in before you go over. This is like called being a responsible grown-up about something that matters, because if it bites you on the arse, it might be $14,500 to fix, which you don't have, or at least if you do have it, you would have preferred not to spend it in that way, kind of thing. So for low-distance drivers, people who don't drive very much, you do it on the basis of time, okay? And for people who drive a lot, you do it on the basis of distance. You might drive, 15,000 kilometres every 3 months, like 5,000 kilometres a month. In that case, in most cars, you'll be getting the car serviced every 3 months, despite most cars having a 12-month service interval. It is a categoric mistake to drive 5,000 Ks a year and say, it's a 15,000 kilometre service interval, and then 3 years down the track you haven't had a service and you think that's okay. And you justify that to yourself by saying, well, nothing's gone wrong. If something does go wrong, you do not have a leg to hop on, dude. You just don't. I looked up the H6 service interval. It's 12 months, but there's a quirk, okay? The first service is 10,000 kilometres. So they want you to do that first oil change a little bit early, right? 12 months or 10,000 kilometres, whichever comes first, a bit earlier if you are a high mileage driver, right? Then it reverts to every 15,000 kilometres, but 12 months is the interval, and it's whichever comes first. You can't just tweak it. If you're a high mileage driver, you can't say, 12 months and be 60,000 Ks down the track and think that's reasonable, because that's freaking absurd too. So for the H6, it's 10,000 kilometres, 25,000, 40,000, 55 or 70,000 in that order, if you're doing it on the basis of distance, if you're a high mileage driver. But if you're a low distance driver, it's just every 12 months, okay? That's the official Australian schedule for the third generation of H6. I looked it up just a few minutes ago. KT goes on and says, they've since refused to acknowledge any of my emails, have stopped all communication and instructed the dealership not to engage with me. So in this sort of situation, there has to be a catalyst for that kind of instruction to to disengage in this way. Maybe there was some sort of tantrum in the service department or some sort of unfortunate exchange that one or other party to all of this regrets. I don't know, but I don't think anyone is obliged to engage with anyone else except in a very limited range of circumstances, usually orbiting things like being under arrest or having a warrant served on you or being in front of a judge or some parliamentary subcommittee. Other than that, engagement is kind of optional. If you're bound by legislation to engage with someone, fair enough, but at other times it's optional. But I'd love to know the backstory there. KT goes on and says, I'm still without a car and without answers, and quoted $14,500 in repairs. At this point, I'd be going to an independent mechanic, right? If they're throwing you under the bus and you haven't got a leg to stand on because you were 10,000 Ks over on one service and 9,000 Ks over on this one, then I'd suggest all hope of a warranty type repair and all hope of a consumer law kind of remedy has evaporated. Therefore, the thing you want to do is get your car back on the road as cheaply as possible. So I'd be ringing a bunch of independent mechanics and I'd be making a short list based on word of mouth, like who's got a good word to say about their local mechanic, and I'd go from there. The objectives here would be to figure out what's wrong with the engine. If it's categorically fucked, then you'll have to find a replacement engine. So hopefully you can find a wrecked one that's come out of a car that's been written off because it was rear-ended. That would be ideal. If it's repairable, just look at the cost of getting it repaired, because you might be able to get it back on the road with a couple of mechanical tweaks. But if you've got $14,500 quote for a brand new engine and installation from a dealer, you can probably get your car back on the road for $7,000 or $8,000, because dealership is always the most expensive option there, KT. KT goes on and says, here's the kicker. When I collected my vehicle to tow it to an independent mechanic, the dealership service staff quietly admitted that their yard is full of blown engines, many under 2 or 3 years old, all denied warranty due to missed servicing, even one only 5,000 Ks over. There is no only 5,000 Ks over. That's like a third of the way to the next service. The service intervals exist for a reason. It's not okay to be even a little bit over, although if you are only a couple of 100 Ks over, then the manufacturer usually gives you the benefit of the doubt on that. So KT says, this is not just about my car anymore. It's a pattern, she says. It sounds like a pattern of people not getting their freaking cars serviced. And if you did, if people got their cars serviced on time and checked their oil regularly, a lot of catastrophic failures would evaporate. They just go away because they were prevented, KT says that GWM Haval are using delayed services to wipe their hands of what appear to be recurring engine failures. No transparency, no recalls, no warnings, no oil sensors, and zero accountability. So, worst case scenario, let's steelman KT's argument here. Are they wiping their hands because of delayed services? There may be a design defect with any engine. How would we know? But if people go over on the service, this is the get out of jail free card for any car manufacturer, because you breached your contract to maintain the vehicle, and that constitutes abuse, and damage that flows from abuse is not warrantable and not covered under consumer law. And how are you going to prove that it was a design problem and not a you abusing or neglecting your car problem, right? That's the real issue here. These issues about no transparency, I'm not sure that's true. No recalls. Well, recalls only exist in Australia for serious safety defects, so things like reliability problems relating to engines. They're not safety defects, and therefore they're not subject to the recalls process. No warnings, not sure about that. No oil sensors. Well, a car is not required to have an oil level sensor. It's generally got a dipstick, and it's generally on the owner to check the level once a fortnight if you read the manual. Zero accountability. I'm also not sure that's correct. I'd say there's an absolute obligation on owners to get their car serviced on time, although no one's going to track you down if you don't. It's on you to do that, right? KT says, I'd be ever so grateful if you consider looking into this, even if you just mention it on your YouTube channel. Most people never ask for that twice. Go figure. It could help force some transparency and to push for reform. I'm happy to provide all correspondence, quotes and videos, etc. So in the issue of doing that, if you've had a GWM Havel product with that kind of problem and it has been serviced on time and you've gone under the bus, reach out to me in the comments and tell me what happened. But if you just neglected to get your car serviced on time and they said, no, that blew up for that reason, then that is a perfectly defensible sequence of events, at least it is in my book. But I would be overjoyed to hear from you if you have had that problem and your car has been properly maintained. Let me know about it in the comments if you wouldn't mind. So if your GWM Havel has taken a big steaming dump in the marital bed despite you paying for all of its hairdressing and makeup, then maybe that's a thing. I could investigate that, but I need some evidence. KT concludes with, thank you so much for the work that you do. I'm not so sure you'll be saying that at the conclusion of this, KT, but I prioritise honesty over appeasement in these situations. People often don't like the emails I get from them, but in the modern world where everybody is PRing everybody else, there needs to be more forthright honesty just to, recalibrate people's flawed perceptions of this and that. At least that's how I see it. So I'd love to know what you think about that in the comments as well. KT finishes with, you're one of the few people these companies still seem to be afraid of. I don't know that they're afraid of me. They just hate being covered because they don't advertise and they can't use that as a lever to shut me up kind of thing. Plenty of insiders at car makers have said to me quietly, sotto voce, one-on-one, they've said, oh, mate, I love your stuff, except when it's about us, kind of thing, which to me is one step removed from the best compliment ever. I mean, the best compliment ever is someone with their finger in your chest telling you how much they hate you, because that means you stood up for something that mattered, right? Paraphrasing Winston Churchill. But a good second prize is to have someone say, I love your stuff, except when it's about us. Anywho, if you've got something to add in the comments that might lead me in this direction or that vis-a-vis this issue, I'd love to know. But I don't think GWM on fundamentals does have a problem with engine reliability, but I'm pretty sure out there in the driving public, there is an epidemic of people who kind of think that servicing and the obligations to do it in a timely fashion as defined by the schedule is somehow negotiable.